Hey guys, and welcome to Pheas Software. Today I'm going to do a disassembly on this double bell JW4 Dracarys or JW4 Hey guys, and welcome back. If you do enjoy this content today, please do consider liking, commenting, and subscribing, because those interactions help me get seen by the YouTube algorithms. That helps the channel to grow. If you want to support the channel a little bit more, the Linktree link in my social description will link you to all of my socials, including my Discord. Stop by and say hello. And if you want to support the channel at the highest level, the join button is down below. That will take you to channel memberships, 99p a month. Totally optional, really appreciated. Custom videos, giveaways, and more of a say in the channel and the stuff that I get into unbox as well. So let's get started then. Hopefully you have seen my unboxing video. If not, that is linked down below for you to go and check out. And we're going to get into the disassembly. So the first thing we're going to do is have a look at the front end. So 14mm negative. I'm just going to undo that and lift that off. Get that out of the way. Now we've got 4 bolts here and 4 bolts there. Let's see what size we need. I'm thinking, let's try 10. It is so I'm using a Torx 10 now. It actually looks more like it's a hex head bolt, but I traditionally prefer to use Torx heads on hex head bolts because I tend to find that they don't round so easily, or I'm just buying really rubbish hex head tools. That's a little bit stuck on that. There we go. So hopefully the idea is that once these 4 bolts come out, this whole front handguard should just come off. That one was actually really loose, as was that one, as is that one. Notice a trend, as is that one. So that now, and it does just slide forward and off. So we've got some sort of ring there that is grubbed, so there is a set screw or grub screw down in there that I'll need to undo if I want to remove that. And then I've got, oh, that's clever. So we've got, well, it looks like a set screw there. Is that a T10? No, that's an 8. That's an interesting little doohickey. I've not seen one of them before. Let's try it, an 8. So we've got a Torx 8. It is a Torx 8. There goes the set screw. That now moves. I'm guessing now I can undo this with some grips. So I would have thought, does that retain, move? We'll come back to that in a second. I'm going to take the upper off because I suspect if we take the upper off that we might get the chance to push that pin back in. Or maybe that pin needs to come out, maybe. So we're going to drop this bolt out. So like a traditional AR, we've got a front pin here and it just connects to it. There's no D shaping to this. So I'm guessing it's a 10 again. It's not a 10, it's bigger than a 10. I'm going to keep that little grub screw over there. Set screw. I'm going to go upper size. Is that a 15? Torx 15. We've got a Torx 15. Now the screw is not dropping down through, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the top half out of it. I'm going to get something, oh, it's flat head. So I've got a thin Torx there. I'm just going to slide that through. It's not touching the threads, and I'm going to just tap that through. There we go. And the upper has now popped. There's the other part of the screw. I'm going to keep that together. Now, will that move at all? That still doesn't move. I'm guessing I should be able to get some grips on that and undo that. I'm guessing that's how it works. Let's get this off and have a look. Right, it seems to be stuck. I'm just going to take the charging handles off just to make sure that it's not those that are in the way. For some bizarre reason. That's one. That's 2. That's still not coming. suspect it's at this back edge here, so I'm guessing that's an 8. There is a little screw there and it's Torx 8, and I'm wondering if it's that, which is now, so as I loosen that off, it's black pop, and it was, there it goes, got there in the end. So this was sat in there like that, and it was screwed up into that came out. I'll keep those together, we'll remember that for later. There goes the upper. So we've got the traditional AR style gearbox that we used to see in double bells. Get that out of the way a second. Now, I'm not seeing any way to get that out of there, so I'm assuming that this can be clamped down. I'll get my grips and see. I've got my adjustable grips. Just gonna clamp onto it. Oops. Yeah, there we go. So just clamped onto it, and that whole assembly is just coming off. So when I finish unscrewing it, there we go. So there's the outer barrel wiggling out. So it's got some locator lugs. There's our barrel nut and locator. So those slide together and obviously lock it all back down. So I'll drop that in there. Got the right way. That is the right way. So drop that back in there. So I'm going to just finger that, tighten that down first, and then I'm almost there. I'm just going to grab it again and nip it tight, being careful not to get just holding the little thin ring. There we go. And then this sits back forward there, and the grub screw goes back in to secure it down, and then the outer just locks into that nice and easy. So I'll drop the grub screw back in now. I know it needs screwing all the way forward. Again, make sure when you're in those threads, if you're facing any resistance at all, then it sort of finishing tightening down, you're in the wrong place and you need to back it off a little bit. And then the handguard then just slides back into place. I put it on the wrong way around. Wow, that's poor. I apologise. Shall hang my head in shame. So it slides back and it should locate, and does, into place properly. Just a little bit tidying up just to get it into there. There we go. And then the 4 screws go in either side, which we'll come back to shortly. So there's that barrel and hop assembly. Now if I put that is hop, hopefully you can see down there, hop fully on. Now that was just sort of enough to lift the 2 5s. There is quite a lot of grease around there, so I am guessing at some point the grease has obviously possibly got in there, and that's sort of causing some of the hop issues, and I would expect that will bed in to be better, but we'll see how things goes on. I will have left a comment in the original video. So I'm just going to drop this stock off then, so I need to get that in there. I need to drop the tool into that gap because I haven't figured out any better way of removing this. That's gone. And now we're going to need a long Phillips head. Yeah, long Phillips head. I forgot. Yes. In this case, this one is long enough. I don't need the one from my toolbox. And I'm just going to undo that Phillips head, which I'm listening for that click. There we go. It's jumped its threads. Jiggle that. There is my really tiny little retaining screw and clip. So that is the direction that it goes in, like that, down the stock tube. Pull the wiring out. There we go. Then I've got our blanking plate there at the back. Put that down. We've then got a thumb tightening system. Might need to there we go. Just needed to grab that with Now I don't know if this is just like a securing spring guide. Oh, there it is. Wow, okay. So that is a quick detach system then to change it, and it actually integrates into the back of the body as opposed to anything else. So that's come out. We've got our bearing, very chunky bearing based spring guide. So it's typically seen as a good sign of quality. As the spring compresses, it wants to twist. The bearings allow it to do that, keeps the spring healthier. Not sure if it affects FPS in terms of stability or anything, but it's obviously there. As an aside, I'm just checking there's nothing else before we start getting lower. So we're all good. Next thing we do is I'm going to remove the mag release, which has got a Phillips head in there. So I'm just going to get, again, make sure you've got the correct size sort of screwdrivers. Try not to use too large or too small as I'm throwing stuff across the room, because that can round them out and damage them. So that's gone. I think that is a synthetic bolt head. I don't think that does anything. I can't see a corresponding screw going through, but one to watch for. I'm guessing we're gonna have to undo these, which is a pain, but okay. So next thing we'll do is we'll remove the pistol grip. Again, Phillips head. Oh, it's just one Phillips head screw. That's unusual. So that one screw comes out. Put that over there, and how bizarre. Let's get a little flathead in there. So I just wiggled the flathead about, just be careful of the wires, and it lifted up and out. That's unusual. So it was anchored in at the back. There's a catch there which anchors it in at the back. Apologise if my autofocus on my phone is causing havoc with this. So red wire is at the front, black wire is at the back. I'm just going to lift the motor up and out. There is our standard double bell motor. There's not even any like sort of writing on it, printing on it. The motor spring has dropped off. We'll discuss that when we're reassembling. And then I've got two Phillips heads, one in this corner, one in this corner, as is standard with ARs. One, I'm trying to leave the screws in the pistol grip to save me trying to get them out, get them back in later. Now, when the pistol grip releases, try not to rag it up. Be very careful with your wiring because you don't want to damage your wiring. So I'm just very carefully manipulating them down and out at the bottom. And there we go. So those two screws have stayed retained in their correct positions. We've got this pin here. I'm guessing that pin there, which looks like it's a teeny tiny little screw, and we've got the fire selectors. So let's go for the selectors first. Now I'm guessing that's too big. I'm going with the Torx 6. It is a Torx 6, so I've held that down with my thumb because I don't want that to ping off. I've lifted the screw out, quite a long screw. I'm going to put that over there, and I'm going to carefully lift that up. And there we've got the little spring. Silver part there is what clicks into these holes to give you the sort of authoritative click of the selector. Quite a nice firm pair of selectors as well. Flip it over the other side, T6 again. This one I've held in place. This one shouldn't have a clicker underneath, but I know to be wrong. No, it hasn't. But they are different underneath those selectors, so you can't switch them sides. Keep that in mind. So I'll put that T6 out of the way. I now need, I'm guessing it's 15. That's the 10. That was only sort of finger tightened. That's absolutely fine for that. And I've pushed that through. So we've got this rear body pin here. So that's now out. That rear body pin. Now we should, I'm guessing it is that. I'm probably going to have to go back to the 6. That is wow, that's a really tiny little screw. And it is attached to a pin. So I've taken the little T6 screw out. I'm just going to push that down and out if I can. Do I need to unscrew the other side? I think that is, so that one isn't threaded, it's just part of the same thing. So if I push, I have just pushed it out. So I used a Torx 10 to just push on the top, so I'm not touching the threads, and out it came then. So I'm going to keep those together safely. We should, famous last words, now be able to lift this up and out. There it goes. There's part of the cut off, which we'll sort on the way back together. And there's a teeny tiny little spring. Not sure where that's come from. Part of the selector. So on this side then, we've got our selector plate, we've got our selector, which is currently facing towards safe. I can tell it's in safe because this is upright, which gives you the physical block on the trigger. Flip it over. This little cog here should be as close to horizontal for safe as possible. Maybe that needs a little bit of positioning when we're reassembling. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lay this down, I'm going to cut the video, and I'm going, oh, actually before I do, we're going to separate this cam from this one. So I'm just going to put a flat head underneath, and as you saw then, it just dropped apart. Now, when you're putting these together, there is a flat edge on this rod, which coincides with this rod, that coincides with this flat edge on that cog there. But I'll remind you that when we reassemble. So I'm going to cut to taking it, once I've taken these screws out, I'll be back in a second. Obviously, don't forget, this screw and these two are the same, those two are different, and those are all the same as each other. We have got 21mm metal air nozzle, vented cylinder, and we've got bearings on the gears as well. So I'll be back in a second. So all the screws are out now, so I'm just going to put my finger in at the back and brace it all whilst I lift that up and off. And there we are inside the gearbox. So an attempt has definitely been made to shim it. Now, considering how smooth it sounded, I'm guessing it's probably a pretty good job of shimming it. Just going to finish winding that back round and out, just to take that from under compression. So there is our piston, in which we've got full metal rack with the second tooth cut right down. We've got a double O-ring piston, which is a good sign. This is what we're seeing more and more, well, pretty much in everything of double bells at the minute. We've got a fairly standard stock looking gear set, no real signs of any sort of rubbing from them, so which suggests that some element of shimming is, you know, in effect there, and the smoothness of it overall sounds good. I'm guessing if I put my finger on the air nozzle, pull the piston back, I am getting, wow, even with the air nozzle on, I'm getting, so compression there. If I let go of the front there, it's just sliding forward. So the compression is definitely working extremely well, as we're seeing in all the double bells of late. They have really sort of nailed down their compression parts really, really well and really nicely, which they deserve a lot of credit for, to be honest, because, you know, we've seen other more premium brands not able to churn out sort of quality compression parts yet. So just secure that down. The wiring is being an issue, as is the anti-reversal latch. So we've got the anti-reversal latch then. So just as a point to note, so this is your anti-reversal latch. When the gears turn and then you stop, this stops it all unwinding, giving you a very unusual noise. So this is on a little tiny spring arm, as you can see there, hopefully, and that just pushes it against the underside of this gear on these teeth here to stop the gearbox gear set unwinding. So I'm going to drop that in place. I'm going to open it up, and it should want to spring back inwards, which it is doing. Now, luckily enough, this is probably one of the better springs. It's a really light spring, and it's just heavy enough to put the pressure it needs on the gear. So I'm now just going to roll the gearbox casing on. I think I've just knocked into reversal latch. I have. Doesn't want to stay. So there's no real way to describe the awfulness of trying to do this. It is just manipulating things around, there we go, until it kind of drops in. I usually use some sort of screwdriver just to help manipulate things into the right place. And then what I'm looking for is that I should have a flush seat in here. The gearbox casing, minus a little bit of casting issues, should be flush all the way around. There shouldn't be any sort of wobble or blatantly obvious big gaps anywhere. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop these screws back in, so I'll cut to that. So I'm back, put the screws in. I've spent a minute just figuring out where a couple of little bits come from, so we can discuss that shortly. But what we're going to do is get straight on with this. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop this through. Now I'm going to leave this as close to safe as I can get it, which is should be, that is more or less horizontal. It's keeping that bar up, which is obviously what keeps the safety in place. I'm going to come back to this side. I'm looking for where that flattened surface is. So obviously don't forget there is a very specific place where that's supposed to go. I'm just going to tap that down. There we go. So that's still. There we go. And I'm going to bring in the other cog. Now on this side it's got some little teeth on the top there. Those need to face up. That's pretty much horizontal. Now the pain begins, because we've got to try and balance this in and not let them drop and move too much whilst basically dropping it into place. So I can feel that they are rubbing against the inside of the shell, the receiver. Just going to, I've literally just braced them with my thumb and my finger, and that's it, just to get them into place. And I think we have done it. It's still there. So we've still got horizontal in there. We've still got horizontal in there. That can come a little bit further forward. There we go. So we have successfully navigated that back in. If at any point they've shifted, as long as they're in the right line, they're absolutely fine. So I'm happy with that. Next thing I'm going to do is just to start getting a little bit of security in there. I'm going to bring this pin in, the trigger pin, and I'm just going to make sure that lines up. Might just need wiggling around, or maybe a little bit of tap in to get it. There we go. So it's lined up, it's come through the other side. I'm going to bring in the little T6 screw now and secure that down. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sort of tighten it, just using my fingers initially, but then I'm going to tighten it up properly at the end of the disassembly once I'm finished. Next thing, we noticed a tiny little spring, there it is, and some weird little frame thing. Now what I've discovered is that they are from underneath here. So we've got a little gap in the underside of here, which this spring will sit in, and it's not a great design idea, to be honest. So I'm just going to compress the spring into there. I'm going to then push this down, and I'm going to use a flat head to just wedge into there. Got that in there, and I'm looking for, the spring is bent. There we go. It's now, hopefully you can see that under there, it is now springing. And then what I've got then is I've got this little frame here that goes, so just to clarify, I got this a little bit wrong. So basically the way that this drops in is, hopefully you can see that there are two little thin pegs. Now I've bent them slightly, so basically the way that this is going to drop in is those thin little pegs should be pointing, when I can manipulate it properly, there we go, should be pointing that way, like that. So I'm just going to manipulate this again and drop this in, and what that does, I get it in there, what it does is it keeps, particularly when the upper is on, it keeps everything, there we go, there we go, it keeps it all nice and flush down, and it helps to keep the spring in, that keeps that that nice and springy. So it should sit flush, it shouldn't be protruding up. So I got the orientation wrong slightly. So the little thin legs need to go in towards the gearbox. So I'm just going to put the back body pin in. That just slides through. Again, I'm just going to tighten this with my fingers initially, and then I'm going to come back at the end once the pistol grip's on, because that will pull this bolt tight, so I can tighten it a little bit more. Next, we're going to bring the selectors in. So I'm going to bring the one in first that's got the clicker ball, and it is a ball bearing which is rolling out, so I need to be really careful and quick. There we go. So I'm now bracing that in with my thumb for dear life, at which point I need to bring in the T6 again. And put that actually in the screwdriver. Right, that one's tight, that's good. And it's clicking nice, and it's moving that one. So I'll click this one in. There goes that little clip again. So that one drops into place really nicely onto its teeth. Again, don't forget these only go on one side. There we go, that's tight in. So we've now got working ambi selectors, and we've got safe is still there, fire is there, auto. I'm going to bring that back in again and fight with that some more. In fact, I'm going to leave that until I'm ready for the upper to go on. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in blanking stock plate. So we're just going to loop that on, and that's going to drop into there. We're going to bring in the spring and spring guide, and that's just going to feed down into there, and then I'm just going to screw that into place like that. I'm going to give it the little nip that it had before. There we go. Then what I can do is bring in the stock tube, force the wiring down. The fiddly bit here is getting this to sit in that orientation down all the way down, and it's easier said than done because the wiring causes issues typically. So I'm just going to lower it down as far as I can and drop it, and it's literally rolled over. Let's go for a slightly different tactic then. Let's go for sitting it on there. So all I've done is I've sat it on top of my magnetic screwdriver. Nope, I didn't keep it long enough. Trying to do this without putting things down is not easy. Right, so there we go, and it's more or less where I want it to be. I'm just going to roll it back until I get the click for the threads. I've rolled it a little bit with my screwdriver, so it's now pretty much exactly how I want it. I'm just screwing that down, and I can feel that it's tightening out. I've just lifted the tube back up. There we go. So that's nice and tight now, solid. If we want to bring the stock in now, we can do. So I'm going to just bring the stock in. I'm going to wiggle that tool. That's now in place. I'm going to do the pistol grip. The screws are still in there. So the red goes in the front square hole. So in this pistol grip there is a square hole in the front, and the red wiring is going to stay at the front. The black wiring is going to go into the square hole at the back, the very back. And what I'm doing here is making sure that they do not get crimped underneath the pistol grip. They all both need to come nicely up and out, which they do. Too big a Phillips head. There we go. Right, just getting those screws in now. There we go. One. Two, just make sure they're both tight. There we go. That now should have tightened this up. No, it's still a little bit loose, so I'll come back later and tighten that up. Next thing then is I'm going to bring the motor in, so I'm just going to leave the wires out. So I've pulled the black wire this way slightly and the red wire that way slightly. So I've got a red terminal and clear nothing terminal. The motor spring is trying to fall off, so I'm just going to tip it up slightly so it stays on. I'm going to slide the connector onto the connectors on, red and black. That was nice and easy. I'm going to bring in the base plate, which is anchors in at the back, and then oops, there we go, anchored it in at the back, and then use the screwdriver to put the Phillips head in. Again, shouldn't be any resistance. You need to make sure that you're in the threads proper. It should be easy to get that back in. So our lower's almost fully rebuilt. I'm just going to get the mag release button. I've been entirely lucky that the screw has stayed in it. So the mag release drops in from this side. Flip it over. I'm going to drop the spring in. There is a set orientation. There is a flat side to the top of this. You can probably hopefully see in there. There is a flat edge in there, which matches with a flat edge in there. I like it when they do that. Just trying to find that thread. There we go. Nope, that did not find the thread. That screw. Screw, oddly enough, is tightening into the actual button itself. So I'm just going to loosen that out. Right. In there. You in there. There we go, that's more like it. That's nice, nicely in. Right, now we're pretty much ready for the upper. So I'm going to drop this back into there in the same orientation as before. That is really fiddly to get in there. Right, that is now in. So I'm going to bring the upper on. Let's put the barrel back in, shall we? Always helpful, isn't it? So there's the barrel. There's our upper. I'm just going to slide them against each other. The hop unit should then drop onto, there we go, drops onto the air nozzle coming out the front of the gearbox. So I'm just going to, there we go, work that back. Then I'm going to compress the front down. We're going to bring that front pin back in. Again, there's no shape to this one, and just going to have to, there's nothing that's through. I can put the pin in the screw in at the front, again making sure I remember to tighten it down, which I'll come back in a minute and do. And then the last bit is putting the screws in at the front, putting the muzzle brake on. Put a couple of these in just to that's one. Two. Remembering that we've got this part, which I've now done myself over and should have gone in before. So I should have put that as the body was coming back. So I'm going to sort that, but that is everything that you needed to know. I hope you've enjoyed that. I think it's tremendously well built. A little bit fiddly on the bolt release section, but that's just how it is. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.